everyone, and welcome to a blisteringly hot Sabi Sands. As you can see, we've got off to a great start. There's a pack of wild dogs right in front of us. These are all the pups panting away heavily in the shade, and the 3 adults are underneath a different bush a couple of meters away. And there's 11 pups that were all huddled up there, and there you can see one adult's head, that's big floppy ears. Well done to Tibbs, who I'm teamed up with on camera today, for zooming you across there so efficiently. And like I said, it is blisteringly hot. 35 degrees Celsius, 95 degrees Fahrenheit, but there may be a little bit of cool weather on the way. There is a massive cloud building to the west, which we'll show you a little bit later. And what we're probably going to do is actually head off and keep driving around and return to these dogs a little bit later once it's cooled down. We had a remarkable sighting of them this morning, and we're probably with them active for about 2 hours. At some stage, it was both Brent and myself in the sighting. They managed to catch a baby impala. We didn't see that. We just saw them finishing off the scraps. But what Brent did see was they caught a scrub hare, and it was in front of him. So they've had a little bit to eat, but there's a very strong chance that they're going to be hunting again this afternoon. And being one of Africa's most successful large predators, we have got very, very exciting prospects. But for now, in this heat, and as you can see the way they're panting, it is not likely that they're going to get active anytime soon. Oh, I'm not sure if I would be comfortable having one of my siblings using me as a pillow in this heat, but they do have incredible bonds, these animals. You'll be glad to know that James is also out on another vehicle with Andrew on camera, and we've got Nikki and Louise in the final control room. Brent's got the afternoon off, but he'll be out tracking a little bit later. Hello to Matthew in Los Angeles, who sent through some updates on the Juma waterhole camera, which is a 24-hour feed. And while we're not on safari in the vehicles taking you guys around, you should certainly log on to that live waterhole camera. And Matthew discovered that there was quite a lot of general game. Oh, Tibbs, look here, there's one of the adults moving. This could be interesting. Or was it one of the pups, actually? No, looks like one of the pups, actually, forgive me. That was a cross with, obviously, the adults. So, hard to actually keep track of them because, in terms of size, because they have grown quite substantially. Apologies, Matthew. Yes, there certainly has been a lot of general game. I don't think it's that these wild dogs necessarily have pushed them there. I think it's simply because of this extreme heat. And waterholes tend to be most active in the middle parts of the day. Oh, they're trying to dig to get to cool sand. Look at that. That's interesting. If they dig deep enough, they'll get to cool sand below. There we go. Perfect. The perfect bed in these hot conditions. So, Matt, I just think it's good luck and the general flow of animals through this area that's caused there to be an influx of general game around that waterhole camera. Now, for any of you who may be joining for the first time, it's wonderful to have you with us. There's been an influx in new safari goers recently. It's important that you know a couple of things. This is a live safari. What you see is happening this very second in Africa. If you don't believe us, send us through a query at questions@wildearth.tv or hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, and we'll get back to you to confirm that this is in fact live immediately. So, without further ado, I think a lot of you will be in agreement with me. These wild dogs aren't going to be up too much, and after Matthew's updates on all the action around the waterhole, I think it's going to be in our best interest to try as much as possible to move around some waterholes. Now, the before we get there, I'm going to show you another source of some potential water this afternoon. Take a look out to the western horizon. There are some beautiful big clouds brewing, one of which, this main kind of monster, that's the darkest in the center of your screen, is going to be hopefully the one that brings us some much needed rain. So we're looking out to the south and to the west, and that is where we get the predominant kind of rain from that direction. Time will tell. If it does rain, it's going to make life for us a little bit tricky because we've got a lot of equipment on these vehicles that doesn't like to swim. So we'll cross that bridge when we get there, but it certainly will be greatly appreciated by all the animals in this area. I believe is your name, and apologies for keeping you up last night in Florida, but thank you so much for commending both Brent and I on doing that to you, following these wild dogs running around, and it certainly was incredibly exciting stuff, and I am confident that this afternoon will also bring us some great joy whilst watching those animals. They are probably the most exciting of all the African animals to follow. They just move so quickly, and because their strike rates and killing rates is so successful, that also makes for interesting viewing. I can't wait to have a look at the footage that we captured on this virtual reality rig this morning. I think we would have got some awesome footage, not only of the wild dogs, but even of a pack of about, or a clan of about 4 hyena that were running around this area that we're actually driving through now. Well, as we drive through, I'm obviously keeping a close eye out for any potential prey for these wild dogs. The area that we're in usually does boast quite high impala populations, so I'm confident it won't take this pack long to come across some potential prey when they do in fact get active a little bit later on. Sadly, no major updates regarding lion. A few of the Birmingham males are to the south of our property, where they've tended to be hanging out over the last couple of weeks, more south of us than north of us. And still no idea where the Nkuhuma pride is. There was no sign of any leopards on Vuyatela this morning. That's not to say they're not here though. But in terms of big cats, no major updates from this morning. There were lots of ellies around this morning, which was wonderful. I saw quite a few big herds once I left the wild dog sighting with Brent, but because there was so much action unfolding there, I don't think you guys came across to me with the ellies, but they are around, so good prospects. Sharon, thank you very much for sending through your humorous update. She says she's all strapped up and ready to go. She's got a few rolls of duct tape ready to fasten anything down that she needs to whilst on a Ferrari safari chasing after those wild dogs. And that's an example of one of our seasoned viewers. He knows that chasing wild dog can be a bumpy affair. And Tibbs, who's on camera with me, will confirm that, and whoever's been on camera with Brent before will confirm that even more so. I think Brent gets the most excited out of any of us when it comes to wild dog. And these vehicles we have got the ability to move very, very quickly. Wow. Hello, ladies. And I must warn you that there is a pack of wild dog close by. So enjoy relaxing in the shade while you can, because I fear that a little bit later on, this pack of wild dog that is in this area could well head to a little waterhole that's ahead of us. It is going to be their closest water. It is sadly north of our northern boundary. Birds up ahead here that I'd like to show you. They look like white-crowned shrikes, and I think it's a little baby that's begging for food. Tibbs, if you go up into the fork of this tree here, over there, there's a youngster. You just zoom straight in there, don't look for it, just zoom in, and then you'll see it once you get there. Higher up, there. There they are, white-crowned shrikes, and what's happening is there's a young baby that's begging. It's the one on the left, I think, and what they'll do is they'll shake their wings wildly, urging their parents to give them a little snack. What is going on here? They just moved back into a little fork in the tree there. Anyway, it's probably the heat that's driving them crazy. And we're gonna, I think there might be a nest in that fork in the tree, Tibbs. There's certainly a lot of commotion going on there. Now, we did follow one of these birds' nests before, and it's not a normal spot for them. Look at it, beak open there, panting in this hot weather. Well, there certainly is a commotion going on there. Anyway, over to James, who's going to give you an update on his plans for the afternoon, and we will catch up with you guys a little bit later.
Well, everybody, you've arrived just in time to view the Great Migration as it moves across this vast plain to the Djuma waterhole, where the wildebeest are hopefully going to have a bit of a drink. Those that are not having milk at the moment, and there are a few of them having milk just in front of us now. There they are. I am not having any milk at the moment. My name is James Hendry. On camera today is Andrew. Andrew is dressed in all sorts of Nat Geo Wild branded equipment. He looks very professional indeed. He hasn't shaved though. Our plan today is basically to not die of heat stroke. That is the major plan of the afternoon. So far it's going okay. The enormous black cloud that is building off to the western side of the reserve is hopefully going to assist us in that. It was supposed to be about 103 degrees Fahrenheit today, which is about 40 degrees centigrade. I don't think it's quite reached that. Psychologically, I felt it would, so I've been sort of lying with a cold towel on my head for most of the day. It's actually going to turn into what I think is going to be a stunningly beautiful afternoon as the storm builds in the west. So, we're going to drive around to the waterhole there and see these little things drinking. It was just amazing to me. They are no more than a few days old, and yet they're all heading off to drink water already. Now, if you think of other mammals that aren't quite as precocial, in other words, mammals that aren't born quite so fully developed, they don't drink water for some time. We had a question yesterday about whether all mammals would drink water when they're born, and the answer is an unequivocal no. Our own species, that Homo sapiens sapiens, well, we don't drink water for some time after we're born. So water is very limited, and I'm sure Scott mentioned this. Wonderful. We've got some viewers, Tiens and Agnes and Margate. Tiens, you're watching with Agnes, who is your housekeeper. And Agnes, you don't believe that what you're seeing, do you? Agnes? Well, I'm going to assume that if you're living in Margate, that you're probably a Zulu speaker. And so, ngizokutshela ukuthi izilwane zethu la zikhona. Kuse-CTV sise-live la eKruger National Park nezilwane zaseMzantsi Afrika. So, Agnes, I hope you have a really enjoyable show with us today. So, some of you have been watching the Djuma Dam cam, including a newer viewer all the way from Budapest. Now, that is so exciting to me. To have somebody watching from Hungary is just wonderful. Now, Lacey, you want to know why we don't show rhino on the show, and obviously there have been some rhino here. You've seen them on the Djuma Dam cam. Lacey, it's just got to do with the fact that the poaching scourge has yet to abate, and so we just don't want to give any kind of indication as to where any of the rhino are. It's just a small sort of contribution to trying to save them, and we hope that it does make a difference. But that's why we don't show rhino, and we don't talk about them a great deal. That said, if you want to ask any questions about the biology of rhino, I'll be more than happy to try and answer them for you. Wonderful to have you with us from the depths of Hungary. I just think that's fantastic. First viewer from Hungary as far as I can work out. So the buffalo are now monopolising the water. I think there were some rhino monopolising it a little earlier, as you saw in the Djuma Dam cam. They've moved off, and the buffalo are now enjoying a mud wallow. There was also a warthog here. They've disappeared. There was some nyala, there've been impala. The wildebeest are now having a bit of a graze down in what used to be the Djuma Dam, and is now, in fact, more resembling the Gobi Desert than anything else. And you can see this one here, specifically, the closest one to us, is drinking straight out of the little pump, a little sort of pipe, out of which the water is flowing. There you can see it just in front of his great big hoof. Nice breeze starting to come up as that cloud builds. So what I think we'll do is we'll head off onto quarantine clearings, have a good look at the storm developing, and then make a plan from there. We'll probably head to Treehouse Dam to start with, and then maybe off to the far northeast and check out Buffelshoek Dam. I don't know what he's doing there, that buffalo. We'll just watch him a bit longer. He looks like he might eat that rock. The wind starting to blow now. Now, some very valid questions as we drive away from the waterhole here. Jeff Top and Gemma, along similar lines. Jeff Top, you want to know, today is a Birmingham Boys' Day. I'm sure it will be for someone. It probably will not be for us. They weren't on the reserve this morning, and therefore they probably will not be on the reserve this afternoon. It's been a very hot day, like I've complained about bitterly, and it's therefore highly unlikely that any self-respecting lion will have done anything other than lie under a bush for the most of the day. And Gemma, you want to know, what do we have to do to get lions on Djuma again? Basically, it's got to do with the Birmingham Boys. If they had not created such incredible upheaval, I mean, the bulk of our lion viewing, like many of you know, used to be provided by the Nkuhuma Pride, and 3 of them were killed by the Birmingham Boys when they started marauding down south here, and the Nkuhuma Pride has not been heard of, I think now for probably about 5 weeks. There was an unidentified pride watched walking into the Kruger National Park today at Nkoro. Maybe that was them. Oh, look at this. Look at this. And this is just being borne out by Natalie, who says that the Nkuhuma Pride is indeed on Nkoro, which is fantastic news. Look, this is not the Birmingham Pride or the Nkuhuma Pride. This is just tiny little nursery group of baby impalas. Not one adult with them, and that is a little wildebeest who's sitting with them. But look at how magnificent they are. I wonder why they're on their own. They will congregate in these little nursery groups. Normally, however, there will be an adult supervising, not a junior wildebeest in charge. And of course, 3 of these little chaps today met their end at the teeth of the wild dogs. And apparently there is a lone female that's been standing underneath a marula tree on quarantine since this morning. And, you know, if you look at an impala's face, it's absolutely impossible to tell if there's any kind of emotion going on there because they don't have expressive faces like us. But the chances are always that she's actually in some kind of state of mourning. I wouldn't be surprised to find that out. Aren't they sweet? Such dainty little things. I watched one nearly getting taken out by a hyena yesterday. It was hiding in a bush. Why it was hiding there without its mother, I don't know. It got up and hared away, and the hyena gave chase, and I don't think the hyena caught it. See them even at this little age. I mean, they're probably, the oldest one might be 2 weeks old. And they are allo grooming already, cleaning each other, forming little social bonds. And again, because they don't, you know, there are lots of them, they're almost impossible to recognize one from the other. I don't think we quite understand the social bonding that goes on. I don't think we understand the kind of emotional connection that they have or any kind of communication that they might experience. It's just too sweet. And you can see there, just look at those ears sticking out there. You can see they look just slightly terrified all the time. I would definitely look very terrified if I knew that there were wild dogs coming to eat me. Here comes a mother. Just checking us out, saying don't talk to strangers. Don't any of you look at those or talk to them. Isn't that sweet? And interestingly, if you look at her condition, her ribs are showing, her hips are showing, and I'm sure that's a result of the fact that she's now using a huge amount of energy trying to make enough milk. She's just, that's the call that they make. What she's saying, I don't know. Oh, and there's a fairly large old grandpa-like figure coming to say hello. We're not going to get in his way. We'll just quietly move out of his way. He's got 2 passengers, 2 red-billed oxpeckers with their beaks wide open as they goolah flutter or pant. There we go. Look at that. Looks like they're sort of 2 choir birds caught mid-song. Perhaps singing a Christmas carol of some sort. Which one do you think they're singing, Andrew? They're definitely doing the descant to some very long carol with lots of R's and O's. Not many consonants in the lyrics. And in the background there, what you did see was the Vuatela at camp, which is one of Juma's commercial safari lodges. Now, I think it was quite interesting, unlike the buffalo, at least unlike the impala, what you find is the buffalo do have fairly individual-looking faces. I mean, their horns are all different shapes. Some of them have got very Roman noses, which I think is quite fascinating. And so you can tell them apart. Their sort of facial expressions you can't tell, but their faces do look very different. They normally look very mournful or very like they want to come and, bash you, basically. Whereas the impala have no facial expressions at all. And I think it's a very interesting thing. I think while we drive up onto quarantine here, I think the fact that primates, of course, are extremely expressive expressive in the face. It's a massively important part of how we communicate with each other, just by looks, twitches around the mouth. You know, we've got very sophisticated mouth muscles, we've got very sophisticated facial muscles that tell each other all sorts of things about our state of mind and that sort of thing. And that one, much smaller, leaner, in fact skinnier than the other, and shorter. Maybe mummy hasn't got such good milk. Two little friends. Whereas most other mammals, like I was saying, don't have the ability to sort of show any kind of emotion in the face, and I think that's led to a lot of the belief that animals don't show emotion. Now, Wendy in Long Island, New York, a very good question about what sort of dispersal is the general heading under which your question would fit, and why, or will these youngsters eventually form a herd of their own? These nursery groups, will they then just become a herd? No, they won't, because remember, we can't tell the difference now between the males and the females. You can if you really look hard, but the males will go off and form little bachelor groups. The females will go off and form little bachelorette groups, or stay with their natal groups. And so that's how that will work. And I think that you'll find that mostly the related females will stay together, and then the males will disperse off somewhere else probably. So pretty, but you can see that little one on the right-hand side, which we'll go to now, just doesn't look quite as healthy as the one Andrew's just been showing you. There you can see the difference in the height and the body condition. And I don't think it's just because he's younger, which he almost certainly is. But just the fur looks a bit ruffled. It doesn't look like there's the same muscle mass on others of the same size. And that's not surprising. You know, one of the most expensive things for a mammal to do is to produce milk. How do they find each other? They look exactly the same. How on earth do they know who's who? And she, interestingly, looks to be in better condition than the female we saw earlier. Not a very impressive attempt at suckling there, was it? So we were chatting about the lions and Earth Touch. You say that African lions are about to be added to the red list, to the endangered species list. I know certainly 2 subspecies of them are about to be classified as endangered. I mean, I think you can. There are only 20,000 left. I think you can classify that as pretty endangered. And you want to know if that will make a difference? No, not to lions in this area. That won't make any difference at all. We are in a protected area, thankfully. So the lions here are completely protected. I hope that it will make a difference to the amount of trophy hunting that is allowed. I hope that also it will make a difference to some of the lions that don't live necessarily in protected areas or in marginal or buffer zone areas, certainly up in East Africa and Central Africa, and I hope it will make a difference to them and perhaps make it easier for those involved in lion conservation to raise more cash for their conservation. So yes, I think it will make a difference to their conservation, not particularly in this area though. I'm going to say that I don't think it's going to rain, mainly because clouds have lied to me too often.
Sorry, last message. Didn't copy your message.
Isn't that beautiful? Andrew, what are those funny clouds there called? Do you remember? They're called mammatus clouds or something. Those funny baubles. Either that or the aliens are coming. So, Kathy Ward, you're in Memphis and you say you're spending Christmas alone. Well, I'm sorry about that, but fear not, you will not be completely alone. You want to know if we will still be producing the show. We will, absolutely, for the full 3 hours. But yes, as you say, unless there's a very large rainstorm, which given the parlous state of the drought at the moment is unlikely, we will be with you for 6 hours on Christmas Day. That will be Brent and I, doing our best to keep you company on Christmas Day. So fear not, Kathy, you will not be alone. Right, on we go. Do you think it's going to come, Andrew?
Negative.
I don't either. So let's head down to Treehouse Dam, see what we can find over there, and then maybe pop across to Buffelshoek Dam to find that little chick Scott found yesterday, the great nest magnet, Scott Dyson. He found a tiny little water thickney in its nest with an egg. Ooh, there's some beautiful, beautiful clouds there. Let's go via Zoe's Road. Yay! Thank you, Raisa in Finland. You say they called them mammatus clouds, and that was my guess. Thank you, Raisa, for making me feel very clever indeed. Donna Miller, you say that you were unable to look at those Impala and not think of Bambi. There was not a Bambi, there wasn't a small deer, there was a Birchall starling in there. But Andrew, with the Hubble Space Telescope lens, there it is. Well done, Andrew, that's a great sighting. What would you give that, about what? Well, maybe sort of half out of 10. Awesome sighting of Birchall starling. There is the actual starling. Bambi, yes, it's been a while since I saw Bambi. In fact, I can't actually remember seeing the full show. And yes, very similar. But of course, deer, very different from antelope, in that the antelope will eventually, well, they get horns, the males, and the deer get antlers. And the antlers, of course, will fall off and be replaced. The horns will not. Thank you, Andrew. That was possibly the most epic sighting we've ever had. I think they had a crash cut away from the wild dogs hunting. Like that, don't you? Now, Jeff Top, very appropriate question for, of course, who's filming today. We have the drone commander, Andrew Francis, is on camera this afternoon. And Jeff Top, you want to know if we're going to be using the drone today or any other day during the regular webcast. We are not, Jeff. That's the short answer. And that's only because for the Christmas period, we've got a skeleton crew. So we've only got 2 cameramen on site. and that means that they're both going to be filming either the walk or the drive, and so Andrew cannot be freed up to fly his drone, and this is making him quite sulky, and every day we have to pat him on the back and make sure that his spirits are lifted, because he really does enjoy flying his drone, and I think those pictures that he gets are just quite stunning. So Jeff, until we've got another, until we're 3 cameramen up, we won't be flying the drone. Let's head across to Scott. I'm going to be deafened by the cicadas in this tree above me. Let's head across to Scott, see what he's found, and I'll keep you posted on what we find.
Happy to hear that you have just spent some tender moments with James and a few of the new additions to Djuma. And let's just keep in mind that that could well change the tempo a little bit later on, especially with this pack of wild dog in the area. They are highly effective killers, and there's a strong chance they will be running after some baby impala and wildebeest a little bit later on. So that is the way of the wild, and something that I guess we just need to mentally prepare ourselves for, as it could well happen. I left the pack again about 5 minutes ago. I went past just to check in on them, and they were still there. But now that this cloud has moved in front of the sun, what I'm going to do is make sure we're not too far away from this pack, because if they do get active and start moving, it'll be very, very difficult to catch up with them again. So it's going to be worth our while now, from basically now on, pulling on the patient pants and hoping that they don't take too long to get active.
Two little birds running off down here, called crowned lapwings, and I wonder if they've got a nest nearby. I think they might well do. And just like the water thickney nest that we found yesterday and monitored yesterday afternoon as well as this morning, they've got very cryptically camouflaged eggs, and it would be wonderful if we could get to see one of their chicks, but they've got remarkable camouflage, the chicks, once they hatch. But the only way of finding these little interesting kind of things about the animals is to spend some time with them. So just to stop like that, have a look around, increases our chances of finding out something interesting about them. To the black balloon, who's just sent some wonderful comments saying that they are excited to jump onto the most exciting safari vehicle in the world. And I think this afternoon it could well be. This morning it definitely was. And what always makes it exciting and entertaining, black balloon, is the number of people enjoying the safari together. And each day we get more and more people, so it's exciting prospects. Well, this is a little piece of the wild dog puzzle that I didn't know about. And there's a few members hidden in the shade of this tree as well. There's one, and there's another, at least one or possibly two to its left. And just like us, they will be hugely relieved by this big cloud that's come over. It's caused almost instantaneous relief from the sun. But I guess the Earth's crust is still baking hot, and it'll take a little bit of time before things cool off completely. It looks to me like one of the adults here, just judging by all the notches and nicks in its ears, and also by its size. And we're going to rely on these adults to get the 11 little pups that are running around in this pack up and going.
which way they head in when they get active is going to make a very, very critical impact on whether we can follow them or not. So that's also something we need to bear in mind for a little bit later on. They could well cross out of our property. If they head either directly north or directly west, we're in trouble. If they head south and east, that would be favorable for us. I wonder where they are going to head. It's impossible to tell. They've obviously got a mind of their own. I'm thinking water is going to be high up on their agenda. What would be wonderful is if they head into central Djuma, to the waterhole there for a drink. But from where they are here, they're probably a little bit closer to Sydney's waterhole, which is just north of our northern boundary. Now, further up along this road, there is some prey. There are some impala. So over to our left, we saw some impala earlier. We have driven over to our right a couple of times, haven't seen anything. So there is some general game moving through this area. What I'm going to do is just reposition to give you guys an idea where the rest of the pack is. So looks like 3 members, possibly all adults, to our left here. And then the rest are over to our right. It's not uncommon for adults to separate themselves from the pups during the day, ever so slightly, not huge distances. One's using a little log as a pillow here. We're on our main access road, so that was a civilian car driving past. Not sure who it is exactly, but somebody obviously popped in to visit somebody at Djuma. And all their ears prick up intently just to make sure there's no threats. They've got bizarre ears, wild dogs. Oh, look at this one's got a nice little log pillow there. You can see by the way their heads are shaking, they're still panting quite furiously. And I was just chatting this morning, it's absolutely fascinating how successful the 3 adults have been, or how lucky they've been with raising these 11 pups. To keep this many pups this long after moving away from the den is highly unlikely. The success rate here is abnormally high. I think they actually had 12 pups to start with. I stand to be corrected, of which 11 are still alive. In my previous encounters with packs of wild dogs in the Sabi Sands, they lose huge amounts of pups. Possibly every pup within a litter can get killed within the first few months of running with the pack. And that's because we've got such a high predator density here. So many lion and leopard that will kill wild dog at any opportunity. And they are not big animals, not at all. And because of their small size, it makes them easy prey. Not that they are prey, but it makes them easy competition to kill for lion and leopard. Also because of their habits and their nature of running blindly at huge speeds through the bush after impala. They don't know if there's a pride of lion up ahead of them. And on one circumstance, I saw lion forego an impala that literally ran straight past it, that wild dog were chasing, in order to rather catch and kill a wild dog. So that gives you an idea of the competition they're up against, an idea of the reality of competition between predators out here. All predators will compete with one another. All of the big cats, with lions being at the top, leopards below, cheetah below them. And Cats in Florida has just asked whether we do see any other cats here other than lion and leopard. Occasionally we will see cheetah. We've probably seen a handful of sightings in the year that I've been here, cats. And again, it's simply too much other predators, too much lion, too much leopard. So that's one reason why we don't see too many cheetah, and also because the vegetation is simply too thick. It's not the right habitat for cheetah, even though they can occur in thick vegetation. They prefer open areas where they can really use their remarkable speed. And a few other cats that we could bump into, a few smaller cats, are the serval, which we've got on camera a handful of times. The caracal or lynx, I don't think we've managed to capture on film, but does occur here. And I'm told the African wildcat does also occur here. It's kind of like a domestic cat with wild stripes and colorations, but a small, very small cat, about the size of a domestic cat. Again, I've never seen one here in all my time in the Sabi Sands, nor a caracal. But serval I have seen. So there are a few other cats that we may just be able to see if we are lucky. But hopefully it'll be something that happens in the future when we get a bit more technology on board and we start spending more time out after dark, cats. A lot of the cats are most active nocturnally in this part of Africa. Serval and caracal in other parts of Africa will move readily during the day where it's cooler and also where there's less predators that will kill them. So there's varying kind of habits and habitat or habits of the same animal that occurs in different parts of Africa. That's just something important to remember. And it's also important to remember that after dark we don't like to get in the way of the animals, and at the moment our current equipment only allows us to film with the aid of spotlights, but I'm sure it won't be too long before we get some seriously cool infrared technology, thermal imaging, night vision that allows us to follow animals after dark without interfering. Hello to Lynn in Michigan, and in this hot weather, Lynn's interested to know how long will wild dog be able to run down prey before overheating, and many, many miles, possibly, even in the hottest of temperatures, Lynn. I know cheetah don't have the ability to keep going at their remarkably high speeds, but that is because their body is operating at a degree where it'll actually start burning itself up in order to be the fastest mammal on earth. That's kind of the price you pay. Not stamina, but incredible bursts of speed that require you to cool down before attempting your next chase. Wild dog are slightly different. They're built more for stamina. They do have incredible speed, but stamina is what puts them high up, or puts them in a good spot to be one of Africa's most successful predators. So I've seen wild dogs moving in the hottest of weather without a problem and chasing prey down for long distances. The exact distance, Lynn, I can't give you, but they certainly are capable of dealing with hot weather. Hello to Darlene in New Hampshire, and Darlene is interested to know whether wild dogs will have intra-pack fights similar to that of the intra-clan fight we saw hyena having the other day. And it is possible. It'll, I'm guessing, be more common for packs to fight with rival packs, so inter-pack, not intra-pack. But from time to time there may be disputes, and a beta female may have a fight with an alpha female, and an alpha male might have a fight with a beta male. It certainly is possible, I'm sure, especially in the bigger packs, which become socially a lot more complicated than the smaller packs like this. You sometimes get packs of 20 plus adults, maybe even more. So they can live in massive, massive packs, and I'm sure in those packs there will be
more likely fights. To what degree they'll fight, I'm not too sure. I've actually never seen wild dog fighting. And up until that morning, not so long ago, I'd never seen hyena fighting with one another. So it's either been bad luck on my behalf in terms of not seeing too many fights, or a lesson for us to all learn, Archer, and that is that animals do not fight as readily as we assume them to. And what they will do is, just like us as humans, they will have an argument or a shouting match before coming to blows. And just as well that's the case for us and for them. Otherwise, there'd be a lot more bloodshed on this planet, which we certainly don't need. But it's very, very important to understand that all the time I've spent out in Africa, and it's many, many hours, day in and day out, I've very, very seldomly seen animals fighting. And I'm a firm believer that they like to settle their problems before they come to blows. Now we're going to race you over to James, who's got an incredible bird sighting he would like to share with you.
Well, everybody, this is a cinnamon-breasted bunting. Beautiful, beautiful bird that I actually can't see. Andrew can see it. There are two of them there, apparently, says Andrew. And the interesting thing about that tiny little finch-like bird is that it nests on the ground in a shallow depression, which is very bizarre. And I wonder, Andrew, you can't see behind the log. It's not actually trying to nest there, is it?
No, it looks like it's just picking off the seeds.
The seeds off the branches. Now that's interesting. It's actually cleaned that. It's cleaned that whole inflorescence of seeds. When it pulled it down there, so it flies up, it grabs. I've never seen this before. It flies up, grabs one, pulls it down. You still see it there?
Yeah.
And now it's pulling all of the seeds off there while it sits on the ground. And you'll see when he lets it go again, it'll look like the other one. It'll look, instead of fluffy, it'll look spiky because he's pulled all the seeds off. That is fantastic to see. Wow. And I can't tell exactly what grass it is there. It looks like it might be a melanus species. But I'll go and pick some as soon as that birdie's finished. And then we'll try and find out what it is exactly. So the bird is the cinnamon-breasted. You see how it's come up and see how different it looks? I'll just go and actually fetch those for you quickly. Have a last look at the birdie because he's not going to tolerate being around me. So just want to check to see if there isn't a nest here. There is not. I don't know what grass species this is. I'm going to have to look it up. But there you can see it's been cleaned off. The seeds have been cleaned off the top, and on the bottom they're still there. So what he's eating is this little piece here. And that's where the seed is. You'll probably find there are 3 or 4 seeds in there. And those little awns, the fluffy awns on them, will be what this seed normally flies with. So when it isn't being devoured by cinnamon-breasted bunting, it will fly away in the wind. Right, I'll take a sample of this with me. Tastes a bit like straw, really. Right, on we go. We're nearly at Treehouse Dam. And I think rather than watch us just drive to an empty mud wallow, let's head back across to Africa's second most endangered carnivore with Scott. See you just now.
So, nothing much has changed with the wild dogs. There's still some beautiful clouds brewing out to the west. Look at that. Beautiful, beautiful scenery. It looks to be raining, but very far away in the center of that kind of
deep cloud there. You can see what looks to be some rain falling onto the Drakensberg Mountains in the distance. But whether it makes it out to us or not, only time will tell. For now, it is looking promising, though. We could well get some rain later on. And hello to Gada, who's probably joined the show more recently. I'm not sure exactly which pack of wild dogs this is. This is the Investec pack, 3 adults and 11 pups. The other pack that we see from time to time is called the Sands pack, and there are 8 adults in that pack and I think 9 pups. But I do stand to be corrected. There's a lot more adults there, and I think a similar amounts of pups. These are all the pups we can see. Litsajergade. The 3 adults are about 50 meters behind us. Hello to Isabella, aged 4, and you ask a very good question. You've noticed that their ears are quite big, but it's difficult to understand exactly how big they are. So what I'm going to do is probably show you with my hands, and they're not much smaller than my hands, Isabella. They are big, big ears, and I'm trying to think of something that would be easy for you to pick up and look at home that would give you the exact size of the ear, but I can't think of anything off the top of my head. But they're very, very big ears, as you can see, and there's different reasons to why they have those big ears, Isabella. I think, my personal theory is that they use their ears to reunite and re-find the other members of their pack. When they start chasing impala, trying to catch some food, what they'll do is they'll all run off in different directions. They won't necessarily all stay together. And because one may run in one direction and one may run in the completely other direction, they can end up very far away from one another. And that's why having those big ears will help them to listen and hear their calls and sounds of the bush that will help them reunite with the rest of the pack. So it's not so much for hunting, I don't think, but more for after hunting once they need to find everybody. Okay, well, I'm going to reposition and let's go and have a quick look at the adults. And Smart Redhead would like to know if these dogs are related to domestic dogs and or hyenas, and I'm sure, yes, they do have some lineage with domestic dogs. All domestic dogs were once connected to a wild dog or a wolf of some sort, so there is definitely a connection between these dogs and domestic dogs, although, albeit very far. There's definitely not a connection between them and hyenas, Smart Redhead, and that's because hyena are in their entirely own family and are more closely related to cats. And Sharon in Pittsburgh would like to know if these dogs will ever interbreed with domestic dogs. And it's not likely, and I don't think it is possible. I've never heard of any dogs inbreeding with wild dog. But it'll be interesting to hear what James says about that. I'm almost certain it doesn't happen, which is hard to believe considering the amounts of bizarre crosses that people have managed to create. Ligers, a cross between a tiger and a lion. So you do get these kind of strange hybrids, but I've never heard of these dogs deteriorating their gene by mixing it with domestic dogs. And their main issue with domestic dogs is that they pick up rabies from them. And rabies is the biggest killer of wild dogs in Africa. It's a terrible, terrible virus that usually wipes out an entire pack at a time. So, not looking too promising with the adults here. They are also just as sleepy as the young pups. And it doesn't look like they're going anywhere quickly right now, but that'll change later. And Mia in Illinois would like to know, how big is the territory of these wild dogs? How far will they actually move? And Mia, it's a good question. They actually don't really have territories. A better word to use for their areas that they move in is a home range. So it's not a strict boundary. It's not a strict court area like a territory. And they just move huge, huge distances. It can be many, many hundreds of square miles, depending on the pack, depending on the area. This specific pack moves probably about, this is looking good. One of the adults is up. Are you just repositioning to get comfortable elsewhere? Or are you thinking about getting all the pups ready to go? Anyway, while it makes up its mind, I'll let you know a little bit more about this pack. They've been seen within probably a 25 to 30 mile radius of where we are here. So about 30 square miles would I would say would be the kind of the home range for this pack at the moment. So it's not a very big area as far as wild dogs go, because it can sometimes be hundreds of square miles for one pack. So huge, huge distances are covered, and we didn't see these animals for many, many months on end while they were denning. So that gives you an idea of how much distance they can move, and they will move. Often fences will not keep them where they need to be, so if they want to get from one area to another, be it from a national park to an unprotected area, they will get there. They do as they please. I think it's safe for us to do one little loop around again, because they are fast asleep, but I'm nervous of doing so in case we do miss any action unfolding. So I'm not going to make that mistake. I'm going to be patient and rather wait here for them to get active. I had a little moment where I thought, let's just do one little loop around the block. But it's not necessary just yet, and I think it'll be more worthwhile for us to wait here and invest some time in these animals in the hope that we don't miss a single little bit of the action that will unfold later. Well, it appears my earpieces fell out, and that is why I have not been hearing anything you guys have been saying to me, so apologies for that. But I am back in and ready for action now. And just in time, because James has just stumbled upon some animals that he would like to show you. So over to James, and we'll catch up shortly.
Well, before we show you the animals that we have stumbled upon, what do you think that is, everybody? There's a hole in the ground, and outside it seems to be a number of marula nuts. Well, marula seeds that are missing the nuts. So send us through what you think that is. #Safari Live, questions at WildEarth.tv, wherever you happen to be in the world. world, be it in Hungary, Finland, Australia, America, or Holland, or anywhere else. Or indeed in Margate. Right, so I'll tell you what I think it is just now, but that's not why we stopped here. We stopped here because there are some elephants just up ahead. Oh dear, I very nearly drove us into another hole. I got us, last time I was here with Andrew, I got us stuck next to some lions. And I had to be rescued. By two ladies. But Andrew, I'm a modern man, so that doesn't worry me. Now, there are the elephants walking off in front of us, flapping their ears because it's so hot. While we try and catch up with him, Jeffrey in Texas, you were obviously watching during Big Cat Week, where we had the microscope out in the tent, and you say we're going to do it again, a bit like the drone, Jeffrey. It depends very much on the number of personnel we have on the ground, and certainly there is the intention. Let's just let that little one shout at us. It's just over there. Jeffrey, our intention absolutely is to, in the new year, have a more permanent arrangement for the microscope and skulls and various things so that we can look at this magnificent stuff we find out here in exactly that fine detail that we were lucky enough to be able to do during the Big Cat Week. A sweet little elephant, a little bit cross, probably a young bull, just testing his strength. He's not at all threatened by us, otherwise he'd rush into the middle of the herd. And Mickey in Final Control says did he just blow snot on himself? I'm not sure exactly what he did. I couldn't see. He's behind a bush for me. I think he probably just sneezed. He's inhaling a whole lot of dust to throw on himself. You can see the light. I'm sure you can all see that it's starting to fade slightly as the clouds do come over us. But they're very kind of split up clouds, and I don't think they're going to rain on us. There's a beautiful shot of those mammatus clouds there. Let's carry on. Astrolina, while we try and gently sneak through this bush here, Andrew, do not let this decapitate you. We're already short-staffed as it is. Your head's still there? I'm now frightening this little elephant a little bit, so I'm just going to stop here for a while and let it get used to us. Astrolina, you say you're in Gauteng, which is Johannesburg basically, and there's an enormous storm there. The most impressive storms I've ever seen have been in Johannesburg. You say it's heading east towards Mpumalanga and Limpopo. Maybe we'll get some of it a bit later. I do hope so. You see that classic wagging of the leg there? That's brilliant, classic displacement behavior. It's what elephants do when they're not feeling very comfortable. Andrew, can we go back across to the little bull there? Yes. You can see he was chasing a drongo, and now he's chasing some wattled starlings on the ground in front of him. His little tail out and his ears pulled out. He's showing how big and strong he is to chase wattled starlings. And wattled starlings are very unusual. Well, they're the most unusual starling that we get. And then, Andrew, can you see them? They're in between the little elephant and the one to the right. They're fossicking about on the ground there. And with that super zoom, you might be able to get quite a nice picture of the yellow wattles that they have on their faces.
Oh, they zoomed into a dove, I'm afraid.
A dove, right. Not a wattled starling. Any luck? Shall I go forward? Let me go forward. And just to keep you posted why I'm confused as to what the little one is now chasing there, straight in front of us, Andrew, on the branch there, being chased there by the little elephant. There we go, wattle starling. So the reason I'm sort of asking Andrew these questions is because we don't have a monitor, and so I can't see what Andrew's seeing. Beautiful wattled starling. And they're nomadic, so sometimes they're here, sometimes they're not, and that's very different, everyone, from being migratory. Migratory means very defined movements to very defined areas. Nomadic means, all over the place. Like gypsies, really. Except I don't think they do much pot tinkering. I also don't think they smell like cabbage. Safari Dean, I'm very pleased that you enjoy the birds with us. I certainly find them fascinating, and again, when you're taking a normal game drive and you've got 6 guests with you and they're replaced every 2 or 3 days, you very seldom get into the same depth that we manage to on these drives. And that, what it means is, Safari Dean, when we see birds that we see quite commonly, we often look up a new fact or just check what they're doing or see an unusual behavior, and because so many of you have seen these things before, we can get into some real depth and learning, which is just fantastic. There's another bird on the ground, Andrew. It is a crested francolin, just feeding in front of the elephants here. Beautiful. Very, very peaceful afternoon, I must say. Now, this is exactly in line with what I was saying about the fact that, we have these regular viewers and we notice things that we wouldn't normally. Now, Barbara, you say that you've noticed that young bull moving backwards but not stepping over his dung. I haven't noticed that before, so I don't know if it's a sort of characteristic behavior, but I do know that elephants are extremely sensitive with their feet, and they're incredibly careful with them. And if you've ever watched a little calf in the midst of an enormous herd of elephants all running around and trying to feed or wallowing in the mud, they never get stood on, and it is the most amazing thing. So I suspect it's just a case of not wanting to stand in their own poo-poo, in the same way that many animals wouldn't, the lions being a notable exception. Right, let's move a little bit forward. Well, this will be a good time to link back to Scott. I seem to have removed the aerial from the back of this car. That's a bit distressing. The elephant is taken off. We're going to head back to Scott, but please do send me your answers for what you think that hole was and the little nuts with what they were doing in front of it. Let's go back to Scott. We'll try and repair the vehicle. See you just now.
Well, not very impressed with James vandalizing our precious broadcast equipment. Only kidding. And I'm sure they'll be doing their best to get that little problem resolved as soon as possible. We've repositioned and have got some slightly closer up views. Sadly, there's a big log in the way, but all the pups still sleeping. Oh, there we go. Did you hear us? Much better. Now I can see your big brown eyes. Oh, not for long. But thank you for at least giving us a close-up glimpse. The waiting game continues, and for those of you who may be joining for your first live safari, you will be hugely, hugely overjoyed by the change in scenery when you see these animals on the move. And it will happen at some stage. So we just need to be patient. We've got no control over the animals, and just the mere fact that they are on our property is something we should be hugely grateful for. there's probably only about 200 adults in the entire Greater Kruger National Park. That is 3 million hectares. It's bigger than many states. In America, it's bigger than some countries like Israel and Wales. It is massive, yet only 200 adults live here. And we've got 11 little pups right in front of us, so that gives you an idea of how lucky we are. Hello, my good friend Matty in Ohio, and happy to hear you with us again. Matty's wondering which is faster, the cheetah or the wild dog. And Matty, the cheetah is the fastest out of all of the furry four-legged animals. Not only furry, us included, even the not so furry ones. And just so that you know, Matty, mammals are animals that drink milk from mammary glands. So we're a mammal, these are mammals, impala are mammals. And then you obviously get the reptiles like the snakes and the lizards. You get the birds. You get the fish. You get many different types of animals, but the family of all of the mammals are the fastest one is the cheetah. So there's nothing that's going to move faster than that animal, not even the wild dogs. But the wild dogs will be able to run for much longer periods of time at a very high speed. So they won't be able to get up to 60 plus miles an hour like a cheetah would. They'll be hanging around probably 30 or 40 miles an hour, but they'll be able to do it for many, many miles without getting tired. And what will usually happen is that whatever they're chasing, the impala or kudu, will often just collapse in a heap, completely exhausted. So these are maybe the second fastest over longer distances. You know, they're not quite as fast as the cats, the lion, the leopard, and the cheetah, but over big distances, they are the winner, and they beat all of the cats that can't run for very far. Hopefully we'll get to see them running a little bit later, Matty, so cross fingers. For now, though, I think it is just going to be a little bit more time spent sleeping. It's cooling down every minute that goes by, though, so things are looking promising. And I must remind you all of how lucky you are that we have the ability of chopping and changing between the two different vehicles. If you were with us out here on safari now in the flesh, you would be stuck with myself and Tibbs in one spot waiting for them to do something, or you'd be racing around from place to place trying to see as much as possible, but missing moments of brilliance in between. So, something important to think about. Just going to ask Tibbs to try and pan across. There's a go-away bird at kind of 2 o'clock, and it's silhouetted quite well. Have you got it there, Tibbs? Yeah, there we go. It looks like it's feeding on some flowers of an acacia tree. But there was a beautiful view a little bit earlier of it. There we go. You can see it panting. That's what I was hoping for you to see. Every time it takes a little gap from feeding, there we go, you can see it panting. So it's still warm, even though it's cooling down. And when we started the drive, it was about 35 degrees Celsius, 95 degrees Fahrenheit. So I'm guessing it's about just under 30 degrees Celsius now. I'm not too sure what that works out to be in Fahrenheit. But still warm. And the go-away bird is confirming it. They've got a wonderful little crest or mohawk. And that's characteristic of most of the birds in their family. All of the go-away birds and their cousins, the turacos, have got big crests. Quite a still afternoon as far as birds go. There's not too much bird song. But just like the wild dogs, I think everything is on the go slow on this very, very hot and humid afternoon. Including us. We haven't moved a muscle. But thankfully we haven't had to, and when we started off, we were sitting in the sun baking for a few minutes before we drove off, and thankfully this big cloud came and blocked the sun out. Otherwise we would probably be parked 100 meters away in the shade trying to get you a view of these wonderful animals. There's a bit of stretching going on now, and that's always a good sign. Rolling over, stretching, yawning. And even though these little pups had a little snack this morning that we know of, a baby impala and a scrub hare, not enough meat for the entire pack, and you can see their bellies aren't exactly protruding with meat. And Ginny on Twitter would like to know a little bit more about what happens when a kill is made. Basically, there's one of two options at this stage of the game. With pups this size, Ginny, they are capable of running to the kill and eating at the site of the takedown. But what does happen from time to time is that certain members of the pack will gorge themselves and regurgitate meat to other members of the pack that weren't fortunate enough in feeding on them. And interestingly enough, on closer inspection from some footage from this morning, we saw an adult regurgitate meat, and it all happened so quickly that we didn't realize that it was actually feeding another adult. It wasn't regurgitating meat for the pups. And we did get a question this morning saying, how do the adults know not to feed the pups too much and rather look after themselves? And that was kind of what we discovered after drive, was testament to that. Adults will always look after themselves before pups, and that makes the most sense. I guess it's kind of like being on an airplane, and they always tell you to sort out your own oxygen before helping those around you. And this is just a kind of longer term but very similar scenario. It's no good having a whole bunch of well-fed pups with starving, emaciated adults that can no longer feed them. You'd rather have it the other way around, with the chance of the adults being able to bring back an emaciated or malnourished pup if the times do turn for the good, rather than the whole pack starving. So either the whole pack will return to a kill, or portions of it will be regurgitated to other pack members, just depending on what happens. And like I was saying earlier, the ears that are used, I think, to relocate one another once they have made kills or bombshelled off in all directions, they can end up very, very far from one another once they've managed to successfully kill. And therefore it wouldn't necessarily make sense for the whole pack to get there, or maybe they simply don't know how to. Good question though, Ginny, and maybe we will get to see exactly what happens a little bit later on. Tammy on Twitter, hello, and good to have you with us. Tammy would like to know, who is more hardcore when it comes to hunting, wild dog or hyena? Excuse me, Tammy. Wild dog are certainly going to be the most successful of the large predators in Africa, so they will bring down more prey than hyena on average. Once either of these animals has managed to bring down a prey member, so not regarding who is the most successful, who is going to dispatch their kill the most effectively? Hyena and wild dog will be very similar when it comes to killing their prey that they have caught. Neither of which will suffocate their prey. They'll basically start eating it alive and just ripping it to pieces. So wild dog do that. They don't suffocate their prey, and hyena also do the same thing. So both ruthless killers and not the most effective when it comes to the coup de grace. Well, not effective, I mean the way that they get the end results of the animal being killed is effective, but it certainly probably isn't very nice to be one of those animals. Although, having said that, whether you are torn apart by a wild dog or caught by a lion and then suffocated while some members of the pride start to feed on you, that also does happen. It's never going to be a good way to go, I guess. So they've all got their kind of pros and cons when it comes to dispatching their kills, and wild dog, like I say, and hyena are very similar in their hunting techniques. They are stamina hunters. They run their prey down until they are tired, and then they tear them apart. Hello to Susan in the Netherlands, and Susan has asked a very good question. She says, even though they don't have territories, do they kind of mark or scent mark on their home ranges? And that's to kind of keep other packs out of their turf or out of their home range. Susan, not as far as I've seen. And what I'll assume would happen is that there's kind of a knowing between certain packs, because of their incredibly strong senses, that if another pack of wild dog was to run through this area tomorrow, they would smell these animals. They would smell the feces, they would smell where they've been sleeping, they would smell their urine, and then read into the fact that there is possibly another pack here, there is possible danger. But I haven't actively seen them scent marking or using latrines like a hyena would as a kind of territorial marker. So good question, and I, to be honest, don't know too much on that. So it'll be interesting to hear what James has to say about that, but I certainly don't have any recollection of them using latrines and or scent marking. So that's interesting stuff and a great question. I think simply because they move such big distances on a daily basis and throughout their lives, that it doesn't really make sense for them to invest efforts in scent marking over such huge areas. Ah, some life. A nice big stretch. Hey, wonderful to hear that Brian in Philadelphia is watching. And Brian's interested to know a little bit more about how these animals will disperse from their pack when they grow up. Look at this incredible interactions. And just in perfect timing, Brian, as you ask about the social structure of these animals. And basically, Brian would like to know, when do dispersal packs start out and what will initiate that? Probably when the dogs are around 2 or 3 years of age, they'll start becoming inclined to dispersing. If their current pack is kind of saturated, so if their current pack is big and they feel that it's time to move on, you may find several males as well as females moving off. So it's often about 2 or 3 or 4 individuals that may branch off of any given pack, and it generally happens around 2 or 3 years of age, but there's no set times that it does happen. Now I'm just going to get the VR rig all sorted out, so you may hear some beeping as the action is beginning. Awesome stuff. Look at this, they're heading straight across to the adults, and oh, Sorry, I got my head in the way there. And we are going to follow, and this is going to be awesome. Look at how excited they are to get to the adults. Cool. Just giving a quick clap to sync the audio. And here we go. This is a ritualistic greeting that they'll perform as they wake up. Listen carefully. And this is what we were hoping for, them to start getting active. Which way are they going to go? So clearly some dominance being shown by the adults to certain youngsters that kind of could be misbehaving, you could say, to a degree, and like most young animals, they do need a bit of disciplining from time to time. What a lot of the youngsters are doing are begging for regurgitations. Wasn't it wonderful that the youngsters got up and they've decided that enough's enough, it's time for the adults to get active. So very typical behavior of an animal that's got incredibly complex social bonds, and they're all just saying hello to one another again, getting ready for the afternoon activities, which will be no doubt chasing down some prey. They are certainly looking a little bit hungry, even though they were successful this morning. But like very often, predators will get up, show some signs of life, and then go back to sleep again. So, no different to normal. It may be a little bit longer before they get on to full hunt mode. So again, we must just be patient. But prospects are certainly looking good. I'm just gonna... So, Brian, sorry, we got a little bit interrupted whilst answering your question as all the pups got up and active. Isn't this cute? Awesome views. But yeah, essentially anywhere from 2 to 3 years of age, as far as I'm aware, some members of a pack may start to disperse. But I think it's something that will always vary quite greatly depending on the individual dynamics of a given pack. There's one other vehicle with us in the sighting at the moment, and we are kind of parked right in their way. So I'm just going to try and reposition so we can get everybody a good view. To Karen in London, who's asking whether or not African painted wolves will hunt in relays. And there are theories that suggest that they do, and I'm sure through default occasionally that will happen. But I don't think it is as calculated and planned as certain individuals do make it out to be. So for me, it's more likely that each wild dog in a pack sees something that it wants to chase down and then starts running after it. If it comes to a point in time where there's 3 or 4 dogs running after one impala, which of course is possible, they could all lock targets with the same prey animal, yes, then maybe they will allow one to charge ahead and another one may then naturally kind of be in a better position to take over that hunt, still heading in the same direction, but not like this calculated relay that it's like, I'm going to go for 2 minutes and then you go for 2 minutes and then I'm going to go for another 2 minutes. That for me is absolute nonsense, and I think predators, to be honest, are given far more credit than they are actually due for their hunting skills. I think it's the prey that need actually more credit for escaping predators the majority of the time than the predators need credit for being great hunters. Lion, I think, are quite silly, to be honest, a lot of the time, and unless everything is in their favor, they'll fail. Leopard are often similar, wild dog no different. So there's not as much planning and calculations as people make out to be. That's my theory, though. Other people will tell you other things, and I guess that is the beauty of the planet we live on. There will be different opinions. There's no shadow of a doubt that these are the most successful of the large predators here. But what makes them successful, I don't think, is necessarily their brain power when hunting, but more their athleticism and stamina that puts them ahead of their prey. Hello to John Jerry, and you would like to know, is there anything that the dogs will not eat? Not that I am aware of. I've seen them eat tortoises. I've seen them eat just about anything that they can chew on. So no, if it's meaty, they will eat it. As far as I'm aware, I'm not sure if there's any other viewers that know otherwise. Now I've lost something, which is very important, which is the remote for the VR rig. Apologies, everyone, as I search for it. Hello to Sean, who's also interested to know about the eating behavior of these animals, and will they eat the fur? Yes. Will they eat the bones? Yes, some of them. Not the big ones though, not the majority of the fur where they can. They are actually quite fussy in terms of what they feed on, or they are capable of being fussy, I guess, with the amounts of kills that they can make successfully. But they generally eat the prime cuts and leave the skin, big bones behind. So they just like the prime cuts of meat, and for the scavengers like hyena, if you come across an old wild dog carcass, there's often quite a lot of meat left on it. So it depends on the individual animal that they kill. Of course, a baby impala will have very soft fur and very small bones that they'll be able to eat the majority of. But where possible, it's a mainly meat diet with not too many scraps. Okay, well, I'm going to try and find out what I've done with the remote control for the virtual reality rig, and we're going to send you across to James for a quick update.
A very rare sighting of a common duiker about to have a drink at Treehouse Dam. But nervous because an impala is just close by. Anyway, I'm just going to hail Brent. We had some leopard tracks in the area, and he is going to come and see if we can help us find the leopard that made them. Go ahead. And we'll just watch and see if that duiker doesn't come down for a little drink. Yeah, Brent, I think that's not a bad idea. We'll just go and check Gary Main. I'm not convinced that they are, I think they're probably from last night sometime. I have checked Treehouse Dam Road all the way to Shibam and come up with nothing there. Look at that. This is really spectacular, everybody. Sorry, I just had to quickly tell Brent where the leopard tracks went and how old I thought they were. and the little duiker. We don't very often have views like this at all. Normally they're running away, disappearing and diving into the bush. And they're not actually that water dependent. They can do pretty much without water. But you can see how terribly nervous he is, that he might be eaten by something. Any little noise gives him a fright. Imagine living your life like that. An abject terror. I think just a bit nervous to stick its nose down in there because it looks quite deep. And you get an idea of how deep it is from the size of the duiker. The duiker stands probably 1.5 feet off the ground at the shoulder. Little ram, duiker ram. We never ever see them in the open like this. It's so spectacular. And you see the dark little patch underneath his eye. Now, that dark patch under the eye is also something we don't often see on these. We see them on steenbok quite often, but that's a pre-orbital gland that allows them to mark territory, and they are very territorial. And you can see he's desperately wanting to have a drink, and he's just too scared. Andrew, just above him, is a thrush, which you don't see very often, an olive thrush. Happening here. We just need Karula to leap out of the bush, and all the birds, just like that thrush you'll see, are gular fluttering. They have their mouths open, panting. It's a special flap in the throat. I did drive. Sorry. Wrong radio. Okay, Ben's just trying to get hold of me again. I did drive Weaver's Nest. I was watching some elephants at the time though. So sweet. Now, interestingly, duiker, and I've told this story before, but I think for our newer viewers it's quite interesting. They look like very sweet Bambi-like animals. We mentioned Bambi earlier on. Duiker are not as sweet as they might seem. I have a friend or an acquaintance who used to be a game capture man, so he'd come and help stock game reserves, and he'd take one game reserve got overpopulated with one species, he'd go and help remove them. He removed elephants and rhino and buffalo and delivered them to various parts around Africa. He said the most terrifying experience he ever had was with a duiker like this, because he and his wife were standing in the enclosure. I think he was just showing her around. She happened to have a handbag on her, thankfully, and this duiker attacked them, charged him. And he said it took him 20 minutes to beat the duiker off with his wife's handbag. Now you can imagine those sharp little horns careening into your shins, how sore that would be. Moral of the story is, when you're in the bush, Andrew, carry a handbag. Very sweet. So about 17 kilograms for female, slightly lighter for a male, and that in pounds is probably sits at about 40 pounds odd. And I can't believe that it's sitting here just completely out in the open. They don't like being in the open. They're very threatened by it, and like I say, they're not water dependent, but this one is obviously quite thirsty, because despite the fact that he's obviously very nervous about being here, he keeps turning around to see if he can't get a little drink of water again. very interesting question, and again, I haven't thought about it too much. Carol, you're in New York and you want to know if there's still dung beetles around. There are definitely still dung beetles around. There's certainly fewer than there were a few weeks ago, and I think that's simply because the ground's got so dry and hard again that I think it's difficult for them to bury their dung and bury the dung balls that they have. So, Carol, yeah, they are around, but certainly not in the profusion they were after we had that last big rain just before Big Cat Week. But they'll come out again if we have another big rain. They'll emerge once more. The other thing this duiker might be doing is thinking about having a lick at the soil there, and that's very important in difficult times. A lot of the animals here will sort of sample clay and bits of soil, but this chap just cannot make up his mind. Come on, have a drink. Come on. Ooh. We've just missed an enormous bird that flew out of the tree. Just didn't see it there. Like a little Wahlberg's eagle. As I say, just amazingly peaceful afternoon. There's no sort of sense of, there's a real sense of peace about it, I think probably because the sun is behind these huge clouds. Now, with the super zoom, we're able to see detail that we cannot see with the binoculars or with the naked eye. Andrew, can you see anything there?
A little bit too far, even for the super zoom.
So apparently there might be a bit of a grey spot on his left eye, but we can't see it at the moment.
Yes, there we go.
There we go. And is it?
Yeah, a grey spot.
So maybe he's struggling to see. Maybe that's an injury from spiking it. I imagine that the chances of spiking your eye on something out here when you move at the speed that these animals do is very high indeed. So maybe he spiked it on a thorn or something like that. But I'm amazed to see him just standing out here in the open. If I was Karula, or the female leopard whose tracks we were following, I would, with any luck, be very close at hand. Now he's chewing the cud too, of course. You can see him chewing and chewing and chewing and chewing. A very important big part, and I mean, you often don't think of these little antelope as being ruminants, but absolutely they are. So just like a cow or a giraffe or a buffalo or an impala or a kudu or a nyala, they will regurgitate their food, re-chew it and swallow it again. That's what he's doing. Either that or he's got some gum in his mouth. It's a bit of a gangster. Watch his throat now. There you go. You see it come up. Ashley, a very, very clever observation. You've noticed that tuft of hair in between the two horns and you want to know what it's for. Ashley, I think its function is much more obvious on a female. The females don't expend energy in growing horns. They do have a much longer tuft there, and I think it looks like a horn. I think it's to con potential predators and potential rivals. It's in the same way that a warthog piglet has got hairs that look like tusks. I think that hair is designed to look precisely like a horn to intimidate any potential rivals or any predators. All right, well, I think this is the longest duiker sighting any duiker has been subjected to in history. Cat in Florida, I think you've had the best idea I've ever heard. I think you say we should give the duiker some whiskey for courage. Do definitely. I think a whiskey for courage is the order of the day for the diker. Right, let's carry on from here and just try and follow up on those tracks. So the tracks were coming from the south of us towards this area, and we're just going to see if we can pick them up. Like I said to Brent on the radio, I'm not convinced that they are that fresh. Now, in the hat, you may notice a feather. Now, this is not a tribute to the Native Americans. It is, in fact, a tribute to two of our viewers who asked me many months ago if I could find them a lilac-breasted roller feather. Now, I didn't actually see this one. Andrew did, but he's kindly handed it to me. And Rick and Susie, previously of Hawaii, I think now of Seattle, if you're watching, please let us know. And I will send this to you, and you will send me coffee. I think that was the deal. Here is your feather. Marvelous. Groundswell of answers to the quiz for the whole. Two answers, in fact. We've got an answer from Grounds Squirrel from a name I don't recognize. I'm just going to ask for it again. An answer from somebody with the Twitter handle Manky Mum. Good one. You said a ground squirrel. Manky Mum, we don't get ground squirrels here, but if we'd been in the Kalahari, that would have been an excellent guess. And then Raisa, I think you're right. You say it's a gerbil. I think it is some kind of gerbil, certainly a rodent of some sort that enjoys eating nuts. So we'll just drive very slowly along here and see if we can't spot Rula's tracks. John, you live in Norton Keynes in the United Kingdom, I think that is, where, of course, the diversity of snakes is not enormous. And your wife, Jerry, is terrified of snakes and wants to know if they actually serve any ecological purpose. Of course they do. They're actually, well, first of all, Jerry, it's most important that you understand that snakes are much more afraid of you than you are of them. As terrified as you are, I promise you they are more afraid of you than you are of them. And the chances of being bitten by a snake are smaller than those of being struck by lightning. They're probably about the same as being bitten by a shark, and I think we know that far more people die as a result of injuries inflicted by domestic cattle than they do by sharks or by snakes. So they really are not that terrifying to be around. Secondly, their ecological function, well, I mean, it's profound. They're fit to make a very huge difference to different populations of frogs and rodents, and without them, certainly the rodents and frog populations would differ markedly. And they, of course, are also in turn eaten by things like snake eagles, by the small mammals like mongoose. So they play an extremely important role out here. But they really are not particularly dangerous. They're potentially dangerous if you threaten them. I mean, if you corner a black mamba, it will be probably the last animal you ever corner. But the same could be said for a leopard. The same could be said for anything. Even a monkey, for example. A monkey, if cornered, is a terrifying creature. So, Jerry, please don't worry about snakes. And if you're ever thinking about coming out here, worrying about snakes is the last thing you must do. There isn't a snake there. There's a very small bird. I think it's another one of those buntings in that scraggly acacia right in front of us, Andrew, top right. It is. I was hoping it was a golden-breasted bunting, which is the sort of more colourful. It is a golden-breasted bunting, more colourful cousin. Can you see it, Andrew? Mm-hmm. More colourful cousin of the cinnamon-breasted version we saw a little bit earlier. Look how pretty. And the only real difference there, of course, they've all got those sort of 70s issue cycling helmets, and then the cinnamon-breasted bunting, unsurprisingly, has got a cinnamon-coloured breast, and the golden-breasted bunting, Andrew, has a
Golden.
coloured breast. Well done. It's nice working with a camera on this sharp, I tell you what. Such a pretty little bird. And they've got a lovely little call. They've got a sort of swizzling call. I'll see if I can play it for you if you have it on me telephone. And I can show it to you in my book as well. All sorts of demands coming through from the final control this afternoon. Don't they know it's hot out here? Let me find it on the app first so that we can play it for you. B for bunting. G for golden. Here we go. This is the song of the golden-breasted bunting. Not with the neutron.
He's getting angry, James.
Is he?
Yeah, he is.
Oh, here he comes. He's calling himself now. He definitely recognizes the call. That's him calling there. That's it. We'll let him call again. There we go. Isn't that sweet? I don't want to confuse him completely. He'll think his territory is being taken over. Have a panic attack. Very, very sweet. Okay, and I'll quickly show you a picture of him in the book in case the super zoom didn't give you enough of an impression. And then you can see the others. Yeah, comparison of the other buntings. Andrew, tell me when you're ready. I obviously can't see. You're on there now? Mm-hmm. They're all the little buntings. And there you can see their little, you know what I mean by 70s issue cycling helmets. They've got those kind of, if you don't know what I mean, I'm sorry about that, but they're very similar sort of coloured heads, all of them. And those are the two that we get here. There's the cinnamon-breasted one, and there's the golden-breasted, and the cape I haven't seen here, but I have seen the lark-like bunting. Now they're a bit like those wattled starlings. They're nomadic. You sometimes see them and then they disappear for years and years. And then one year they'll come back and you'll see hundreds of them. Right. He's still sitting there calling his head off, singing away very beautifully. Question from a new viewer called Joshua Plakis. I think that's how we say your name, Joshua. You want to know where in Africa we are. Joshua, I would draw you a map, but for the fact that we don't have a suitable substrate on which to do so. But we are basically, if you think of the continent of Africa, we're at the southern tip, recently voted, of course, the most beautiful country in the world. That is South Africa, voted so by South Africans, I think. And we're in the northeastern corner of South Africa, and one of the most iconic national parks in the world, the Kruger National Park. That's where we're sitting. We're sitting on the western fringes of the Kruger National Park in northeastern South Africa. I hope that makes sense to you. That's where we are. And if you zoom in really close, we're on a little game reserve called Djuma Game Reserve. And we also traverse to the west of us, Arathusa Game Reserve, and there are no fences between any of these reserves. It's just human property laws that don't allow us to move to and fro, but the animals can come and go all over. In fact, 3.5 million hectares of the Greater Limpopo Transfrontier Park. We're part of that area. Okay, Joshua, I hope that helps you. If it doesn't, please feel free to ask again, and I will try and explain further. The golden-breasted bunting has gone. So let us keep going. Pamela, you on the question of birds, you want to know if we get African grey parrots here. We don't, Pamela. We do get one kind of parrot. It's called a brown-headed parrot. African grey parrots are only found up in the Central African rainforest. They're a forest species, so you can see huge flocks of them if you go into the Congo, and they sort of descend on what they call the bais, which are sort of clearings in the middle of the forest, and I've seen some astonishing pictures of massive flocks of African grey parrots. And the brown-headed parrot is that fellow there. He's number 2. You like that, Andrew? You see the way I did that while I was driving? Really impressive. Safari, Dean, absolutely they do. You want to know if some animals, some birds, Andrew just looked like he was going to fall out of the car. He was having a sneeze. Some birds do indeed follow animals to try and eat the stuff that they kick up. Drongos do that. Those wattle starlings are precisely the birds that will do that. I've seen other kinds of starlings, Cape Dossies and Birchals doing the same thing. I've seen lilac-breasted rollers doing it. So absolutely lots of birds will follow various mammals as they go along, trying to eat what they kick up. Let's head back across to Scott. He's sitting with the hounds. We'll find out what they're doing, and I'm going to meander slowly towards the hyena den to see what's happening there. And also, if there aren't any other people around the wild dogs and they get hunting, then we'll want both of these little nimble Land Rovers on them.
So, some good bird watching and other safari going with James. Happy to hear you've been having a good time. The wild dog have also been having a good time, just relaxing in the exact same spot where you last saw them. Hopefully it's not going to be too much longer before they get active. The adults are going to need to kind of spearhead this movement, and even though the youngsters got up earlier to excitedly come and greet the adults, it'll be the adults that in all likelihood decide when it is time to go hunting. It's only pups that we're looking at here. The adults are over to our left. They are up, and you can see 1 or 2 of them there just moving off. Obviously there's a vehicle in the way, so difficult to see, but they are up, so that's perfect, and that's all we need to know for now. That's the 3rd adult. Not showing too much excitement by the prospects of moving, but I don't think it's going to be too long. And we're going to race you back to James, who's found you another bird he'd like to show you while these dogs are still asleep.
There is the cinnamon-breasted bunting, everybody. And I know you have seen one, but we just thought we'd quickly bring you across to have a look so you could have another super zoom version of the cinnamon-breasted bunting. You still got him, Andrew?
No, he flew away.
He's flown away. All right, I think you should probably head back to the dogs, if I'm not mistaken, and we'll carry on along here. See you later.
Okay, well, we've just repositioned now to give you a view of the 2 adults that were up and about, and they still are possibly the alpha male and alpha female. And let's see what happens here. It's looking promising. Let's see what happens here. Yeah, looking good. They're on the go. One little clap just to sync the audio on this virtual reality rig, and this is what we were hoping for. They are sadly not heading in the direction that we were hoping that they would head in. They are heading straight north away from Djuma. But we are on their trail, and who knows what they're going to bump into. There were some impala directly in the direction that they were heading in. And I'm guessing that it's going to be chase in the very near future. As these adults see the impala up ahead, what's going to happen is that they're going to tear after them, and hopefully we are going to be close by. There goes my cell phone on the left, so we'll pick that up later that I dropped. So we'll keep an eye on that. Thankfully the vehicle behind is going to pick up my phone. So I'm just giving them a big thumbs up. Okay, so I'm guessing that this pack are going to head straight to Sydney's waterhole. I don't think it'll be worth James coming here. There are already 3 vehicles here. When they do get active, it can be worthwhile to try and get an extra one of our vehicles into the area to stay with the chaos. But if they continue at this rate, they probably are going to just cross out of our boundary very shortly. We're going to pick up the speed and try and get ahead of them. The impala that I saw were on our left, but that was about half an hour, 45 minutes ago. They could be anywhere. Oof, it's very thick in here. Very, very thick. Too thick in here, and I'm going to have to start thinking very clearly about how we're going to get another view of these dogs. I'm almost inclined to want to go around to another road. Oh, it's tricky. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sneak into the center of this block where it does start to open a little bit more, and that way we will have a chance of following them. But for now, I cannot guarantee that we are even going to get another view of them. Toys are preoccupying my mind, but getting there slowly. So the wild dogs should slowly start appearing from our right, if we are lucky. Hopefully tearing after an impala. So we're just going to have to wait here for a second or two. They were moving straight in this direction, and I think they are going to head towards the water. That side? Oh, well done. We've got them. Well done, Tibbs. Found them this morning. You found them again. They're straight ahead of us. Hold tight, everybody. Here we go. Hello to Paul in Massachusetts, one of our new viewers, and very happy to hear you enjoying the sighting, and you'd like to know how often will wild dogs hunt, and twice a day if need be. I think that's going to be the case today, because they haven't fed on. Just going to give a quick update on the game drive radio. They'll be on our left now. They're going to be popping out shortly. I've got them here. They're going to pop out at Sydney's Dam. Sydney's Dam. Okay. Here they come. They're just in front of us now. Sadly, they're quickly over. All from our left. Take a look to the left. A whole pack of them streaming towards us. Vehicle. Sadly, we cannot follow. So that is the end of that. But what we can do is try and get a higher view up on the back. It's and a second vehicle. Obviously, I'm not allowed onto Buffalo's Hook, so you can join as a third.
Hello.
Okay, well, welcome back. The Wild Dog are currently looking at a hippopotamus at Sydney's waterhole. Those hippopotamus are about to be captured. That's why there's a big fence around that waterhole, which is probably going to prevent the wild dogs from getting in. Or actually, it'll be interesting. They'll probably make a way through there. But basically, they're planning on doing a passive hippo capture. And there's a big kind of structure off to the left of where they are now that the hippos will be moved into. Thanks very much. Good to see you, man. Thank you so much. And I've just been handed back my cell phone in one piece that was kindly scooped up for me as we went racing past the wild dogs. I lost the remote for this virtual reality rig and my cell phone all in the space of 2 minutes. We'll see you around, Walter. Thank you. There's one member of the pack. Now I'm going to lurk around here. There is a chance that they could come back south. And sadly, for those of you who are new to the safari, there are road boundaries that prevent us from going into certain places that the animals can go. And that's just to make sure that any given safari area doesn't get too congested with vehicles. So it's a good thing to have the traverse rules in place. Sadly, in this case, it is not really working out too well for us because we can't see too much from here. But there is still a chance they will come back. So worth lurking about here for a few more minutes just to see which direction they head in. Hello to Marcia, who's obviously just jumped on board Safari with us and would like to know what is going on here. Well, this is the Investec pack of wild dog, and there's 3 adults, 11 pups, and they're sadly just north of our boundary. So we've been spending the whole afternoon with them, hoping that they were going to get up and active, which they did eventually, but within about a minute, they were out of our property. So we are just currently standing by now. You'll get a few glimpses of them, hoping that they come back south. There's nothing stopping them doing that, and it'll be great if they do. And Sandy and Brian would like to know, how old are the pups? And they would have been born around May this year. That's typically when wild dog in this neck of the woods will den site. So May, June, July, August, September, October, November, December, coming on 8 months. And they would have been running with the pack from as young as 3 months of age. So they've been on the road for about 5 months now. And miraculous that so many members of this pack are still alive. The mortality rate of young pups is very, very high in this area. So far so good. 8 months and counting. I wish we could see what the rest of the pack were up to. There's just that one that we can kind of see loping about there. I think they are still kind of just at the water's edge. You can see a few ears poking up there, but it is far away. There's a little bit of movement, so I'm guessing that's where all of them are. And let's just give it a few more minutes before we race off. Because they are such long distance hunters very often, they could well find some potential prey nearby and chase it straight back onto Juma. And Don's just asked me how many of these adults. Oh yes, this is exactly what we wanted, an elephant to arrive, because elephants chase wild dogs and it can be quite a spectacle. They just threw some sand onto his body, and I think he can probably already smell one of them. The wind is blowing gently in its direction. They don't take kindly to wild dog, and here we go. Here goes. We're going to see wild dogs bombshelling in all directions. Who knows, maybe the elephant's going to chase them back to Juma. Or maybe because he's alone, he's going to run away. Look at his tail being kinked out. So now he's caught sense of them for the first time. That tail kinked out is very diagnostic behavior of an unhappy elephant. So if that happens to you, give the elephant space. Now, what is this Ellie going to do? Is it going to leave? I'd be surprised if it is. Maybe it's not feeling very confident because it's alone. How bizarre. I really thought that monster animal, the elephant, would have had no problem chasing the wild dogs, but that's the beauty of being on safari. You simply do not know what is going to happen and or when. Well, sadly, it looks like the pack are continuing on in a northerly direction. Apologies, Don, I got interrupted there as I was halfway through your question there about how many of these pups do I think will survive to adulthood. Had you have asked me this 5 months ago when they started running with the pack, I would have said 3 or 4, 30%. But now that 11 out of what I think was 12 initially are still alive, I'm confident that all 11 could make it till adulthood. They've survived the hardest kind of stage, the first few months running with the pack. So let's hope all of them make it, because they've made it through this initial kind of window period, Don. And that's why earlier on I mentioned they've done incredibly, incredibly well. Hello to Susan in Tennessee. And Susan would like to know why the wild dogs of the Greater Kruger National Park do not form larger super packs like they do in certain other areas. And Susan, I think they do. I mean, there are certainly one or two large packs within the Kruger National Park, and there certainly have been in the past, but those numbers will fluctuate. Why in general they're not large, I don't have the slightest clue. There are some areas like in Botswana where you get very large packs more readily than here. But I'm not too sure what the contributing factors are for that. I'm sure there's many. But I wouldn't be able to cast light on that. I simply haven't spent enough time with these animals and with bigger packs of them. Oh, well, James has got something exciting that he would like to show you. Some mongoose with some baby mongoose. Enjoy.
Now, the link between this animal and the one you've seen, look at that little tiny baby thing, is that the social structure is actually amazingly similar. Mongoose, you can see a little baby one there. This is a dwarf mongoose, of course, but the one that you're looking at is a baby dwarf mongoose, which makes it extra especially small. And they've got a very similar social structure to the dogs, like I say. An alpha pair, which does most of the breeding. Sometimes there's a beta pair that breeds as well in a big pack or a big troop. But these little pups are very new, so it's not just them, it's not just the antelope that are producing babies now. I'd say those are just, they're probably about a month old, but they're very, very little. Isn't that sweet? I'm very irritated with those dogs, by the way. How they can have gone north into Buffelshoek when they could have been on quarantine clearings supping on dozens of baby impala, I don't know. And you might also just be able to hear faintly in the background, if you've got good speakers, you can hear the thunder. Pop, 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 pop. I can actually smell the rain. Can you smell the rain, Andrew? Now, of course, no matter how good your speakers are at home, you won't be able to smell the rain. And of course, that's one of the great tragedies of safari, virtual safari, is that you don't get to smell the incredible smells that we have here. Very subtle, quite often. But you can actually, I can smell the petrichor, that scent of rain on the earth, actually blowing in with the storm. All right, let's head back to Scott, who's looking into Buffelshoek, where apparently there are some large elephants coming down. Let's head back to him now.
Well, it seems like that one lone elephant has gone back and got some reinforcements. And more ellies are on the way, and look, wild dog, elephants, and humanoids in the same shot. Come on, bring the wild dog back to Djuma for us, ellies. So far, it doesn't look like those two elephants are even concerned about that wild dog that they've just walked past. There's a whole bunch of wild dogs also around the vehicle on the bottom left there, and more ellies on their way. Look at all of them now. Tibbs, if you go over onto the left, it looks like we're gonna get some good action here. The whole herd's heading. Are you on full zoom there, Tibbs? If you just zoom into that vehicle there, that's where the action's gonna be. Here we go. Look at this awesome stuff. And you're getting some great size comparisons. Keep bringing the wild dogs south. It's possible. They're doing a great job so far, this big herd of elephants. But the wild dogs know that there's not too much to worry about. They are so much faster than these elephants that they just need to kind of stay out of their way for the time being. And then the elephants should lose interest, although it doesn't look like it just yet. Now, just to explain a little bit more about what's going on with this fence, just briefly, the fence is there to remove hippopotamus from the Sabi Sands. The waterholes and the waterhole that you are looking at is man-made, and therefore, because it is artificial, the numbers of hippopotamus, which shouldn't ordinarily be here, do need to be controlled. So why Well, sorry about the signal issues. You will know as well as I will that we haven't even moved a centimeter, yet the signal is coming and going, one of those strange kind of things that happens out here. But you didn't miss out on anything. The wild dogs are still kind of out of our view, down at the water's edge somewhere. The elephants appear to be moving off now that they realize that their waterhole has got a big fence around it, but they will be able to go and get some water elsewhere. And the mere fact that there is water in these artificial waterholes in the Sabi Sands means that there's plenty of options. Okay, so just a quick run through of this fence and why it's here again, because the signal did break earlier as I was trying to explain it. So there's a fence around this waterhole. It keeps the hippopotamus inside, and if Tebs pans to the left, you'll see a large structure which is going to be what the hippos are captured in. You'll notice a big kind of gate that will slide downwards and shut at the entrance, and the hippos are being lured out of this waterhole with food, with grass. That is what hippos eat, and there are too many hippo in the reserve at the moment. Obviously, the conservationists and wardens who run and manage the Sabi Sands are the ones that do those calculations, and I believe that they know exactly what they're doing. It also brings in revenue for this reserve to help with anti-poaching and fence fixing, to sell off animals to other areas. So the hippos are being captive so that they can be passively caught over a slow period of time, which is least traumatic for them. It obviously means now that any animals wanting to come and drink here are going to have a little bit of a hard time. Oh, there are the wild dogs popping up. Good stuff. But there are many waterholes in the Sabi Sands, so they will be fine. Certainly not ideal, and I would prefer if there wasn't a fence, but it is a necessity. And if there's too many hippos, there's too many hippos, and if there's a home for them elsewhere, great stuff. So that's what's going on there. Typically, though, we will not interfere with animals and their ongoings. It certainly won't be our job to do so. It will be the conservationists' job. And They are trained and have expertise, and at the end of the day, it is their role and responsibility. It is not ours. It's our job to take you out on adventures, morning and afternoon, and that is exactly what we're going to keep doing. Obviously, explaining what's going on along the way is also important. Ellie's having a wonderful dust bath in the background there. You can just see clouds of dust puffing up. And the wild dogs are moving quite close to them. We can't see very well from this angle, but you can just see them kind of moving through the leaves on the bottom right of your screen. The Ellies don't seem too concerned. And a great last visual of those wild dogs as they head off into the unknown. They could well pop back around tomorrow morning, so be sure to tune into the sunrise safari if you want to have a chance of seeing them in action. They're probably going to sleep not too far away from here. And there's just one thing I want to show you. There's some buffalo approaching that we should be able to show you. They're not too far away, and they're probably going to cross the road fairly soon. The house in the background there is the warden's house. So he would have been heavily involved in the decisions to move these hippopotamus along with the landowners who own this private land in the Sabi Sands. And quite fitting that the herd of buffalo walked past his house just after we've been speaking about him. It looks like quite a large herd, possibly the same large herd that we spent a little bit of time with this morning before racing off to the reports of the wild dog. And they too look like they are heading for a hopeful drink, but they're probably not going to get any luck there. Anyway, there's a glimpse of some buffaloes. The signal's terrible down there, so I'm not going to risk taking you for a closer look. And we're going to send you to James, who is arriving at a den site.
Hyenas everywhere, everybody. We're going to start on this side. Very exciting. Sorry, I'm just going to look quickly here. See, yes, I think we're going to start here. There's a big storm coming over. It's thunder and lightning. Our friend November. So not the youngest, and that means that the dominant female is not here. Now I believe there were some complaints about my referring to the other hyena, who I shall refer to, we did refer to as the manky mum, and some felt that was a little bit unfair, first of all, and secondly, what's the word I'm looking for? A bit shallow, which I think is probably fair comment, given that she's the most dominant hyena, and so instead of focusing on that, I focused on her looks, which is perhaps a little bit sort of 18th century. So, what I'm going to do, instead of calling her Manky Mum, let's put it out to you guys, but we do need a name for her because it's important that we identify who's who around this den. So I'm going to put it out to the Twitterverse. You can choose a name for her, one that is befitting someone of her royal stature, and we'll pick sort of 3 from there, and then we'll choose. Okay? So for now, she'll just be the dominant. And this one is not the dominant. This, of course, is the pretty mum, and that's her little cub of 7 weeks. And this one here, so we're just going to nip across to Scott. He's got something to show you.
Okay, now get ready to take some screenshots. Look at that. Look at all this lightning out to the south. With 2 zebras in the foreground. It doesn't get better than that. And let's hope that all this electrical weather brings us some moisture tonight. We are desperately in need of rain and moisture. And I'm glad you got 1 or 2 bolts of lightning there. It seems to be subsiding now. Oh no, there's another little one. And is it intensifying again? I know you are at an active hyena den with James, but couldn't resist this opportunity. And as Teb zooms out, you'll get a good idea of the entire skyline out to the south. Beautiful, a few more bolts of lightning there. And we're not going to keep you away from the hyena den too long, just thought we'd give you a little bit of a weather update. Back to the den.
There are a whole lot of little ones playing over there. Well, not little ones. There's certainly a yearling, and May is also over there, born in May this year. That's why she's called May, of course. And they're playing around the other side there, but if I'm going to, you know what I'm going to try and do? Just sneak in here, but if that cub reacts at all, then we're just going to reverse straight back, because I don't want to disturb the cub at all. I think it's going to be okay, because she's been very confiding for quite a long time. Just watch her very carefully. Sort of stick my nose in this side and just see if we can't get a view of them playing. Like Tyrannosaurus Rex, trying to see. I can't see anything else there, and we're going to make too much noise when we carry on that way. Let's go back. Amazing, everybody, how, I mean, I'm making quite a noise now, and I'm stuck in the tree, basically, and it's just astonishing, because yesterday she wouldn't come out then, and that is obviously entirely because the dominant female was here. Now, I've been driving over bushes making a tremendous noise, and it doesn't seem to have affected her at all. Here comes another one now to the left-hand side. Those are the ones that were playing. I think there may be 2 yearlings there. And I believe there were twins born in December last year that would be a year old now. And so I think that's probably them. And then I believe there were twins in February. That actually makes more sense. That looks like 2 that are just about sort of 10 months old. That looks about right. And then, of course, there's May, who is now 8 months old. Still very much, you can see the difference in condition of their fur compared with the adult female who's suckling her cub here. And that's just simply a function of the amount of wear and tear that goes into a hyena's life. Some names are coming through. All right, so we've got a couple of votes for the name here. 2 of them referring to the royalty, one Regina, which means Queen, of course, and the other Elizabeth, who is the current Queen, Elizabeth II of Britain. I'm not going to use either of those. I'll tell you why, because I'm not convinced that she's the matriarch. She's certainly right up there, but I don't think that she is the actual matriarch. I suspect that May's mother is the matriarch, but I might be wrong there too. Then the other great suggestion is Cork. I quite like Cork because every time she's here, that other hyena, she sort of blocks up the hole. She sits in it. And so Cork is quite a good one. So Donna, Cork is looking like a pretty good bet. We'll just leave the floor open for the next little while, and you can decide then. So keep them coming. And now let's link back to Scott. He's having an incredible afternoon. He's got some elephants for you.
Well, this is absolutely awesome. A whole herd of elephants taking a dust bath. And it's such a calming, therapeutic thing to watch, I feel. They're in such a good mood. And it makes for some wonderful screenshots. You may have heard me snapping away a few pictures. I would suggest you do the same thing. Awesome stuff. Very still evening, not a breath of wind. Hardly any birds calling, and I guess it's after the heat of the day. And everything's kind of on the go slow, except for these elephants. And she's coming up to say hello to us. Hello. It's a pity the virtual reality rig isn't on now, is it? Because that would have made for an incredible clip. Hello. Hello. Have you come for some food here? You're more than welcome to eat this little bush next to us. I wasn't planning on eating it, so it's all yours. And sorry if we were in your way, in the middle of the road here. Yeah. You didn't like that last little bit you just discarded there. Yes. Okay. I could hear some zebra calling way off in the distance. Wonderful. Well, there we go. A little bit of an elephant dust bath in the evening before sending you back to the hyena den.
Right, now you can see how dark it is. Yesterday evening it was much lighter than this time, but that's because of the storm that Scott showed you coming over here. Lightning is certainly exploding all around behind us. You can see how much darker it's getting. So we'll just sit here for a little bit longer, and that little cub has not moved. She's been suckling and suckling and suckling. And I was doing a little bit of reading on hyenas today, because obviously we're seeing so many interesting little kinds of behaviors here. And the interesting thing that they say doesn't happen, and it has happened here, is that the dominant female, or the more dominant female, gave birth at what they don't call, you've got this, I've forgotten the terms now, you've got the central den and basically a temporary den. And normally the dominant female will give birth at the central den, and this is definitely the central den at the moment, and that didn't happen here. She gave birth away from here at a temporary den, and that's one of the reasons I'm not convinced that she's the actual matriarch of this clan. But it's all rather interesting. You will now start to see little flashes on your screen from the lightning. Now, as many of our regulars will know, hyenas, although they look like dogs, are more closely related to cats. And Smart Redhead, you want to know, ooh, there's the thunder. You want to know, I mean, in what way, how is it possible Smart Reddit is not as simple as pointing out a couple of physical characteristics. It's in terms of their DNA. Their DNA is much more closely aligned, and from the fossil record we can tell that the common ancestor of the cats and the hyena split off from the common ancestor of the dogs and the cats and the hyenas. They all eventually had one common ancestor, but the hyenas and cats' common ancestor split off from that of the dogs probably about 2 million years ago. So they've been evolving away, if you like, from the dogs for almost 2 million years, and they've been evolving along the same line as the cats for a much longer time than they have as the dogs. And the result of that is that their DNA is much more closely aligned to those of the cats, and I think possibly of those of the mongoose as well. And that's May there, who's coming in here. Now you see the fact that May is prepared to come in here and say hi and sort of semi-suckle off another female tells us that her mother is also very dominant. She wouldn't do that if her mother wasn't dominant. But there she gets a little bit of a hiding. All right, everyone, I think we're going to pack it in here, I'm afraid. The little one's gone down. I'm sure she's going to come back out again. But because it's getting so dark, we can't shine a light here. And Andrew is pushing this camera to the max. Aren't you, Andrew?
Yes.
Yes. Anyway, they've just disappeared. What does the picture look like, Andrew? Are you happy to sit for a while?
Yes.
Okay. The picture apparently looks okay. So let's sit here a little bit. And the little one does seem to be trying to come out again. Here comes Mum. Lots and lots of different names coming through here. Lotus and Buffalo, BB for beautifully bald. Well, I quite like that one because I'm bald myself. We've had Cleopatra. We've had Shenzi. I think that comes from the Lion King. I don't remember that one, but yes, Shenzi it could be. I don't think we should name her after a lion, though, especially as hyenas don't like lions very much. I'm leaning towards Cork. Andrew?
I love Cork.
And we've got 4 votes for Cork.
Or Corky.
Corky. We could call her Corky if we were feeling affectionate towards her. Ooh, and there's the little one stuck its head out. The little 2-week-old, December 1 and 2, seem to be sticking their heads out. Look, Andrew, can you see them?
Yes.
And those are the mothers. At least those are the offspring of Corky. I think it's perfect. Corky and pretty. There we go. Done. Unless anybody has any major objections, then you'll probably have to sign a petition. She's going to be Corky from now on. And Cork is not due to her looks, of course. It's because she likes to plug that hole where her little baby's been trying to come out. I do hope we're still broadcasting. Apparently the final control has lost power, sorry. It's not on fire, it has lost power. But we've only got about 12 minutes left, so we should be alright. So we'll sit here a little bit longer. Sandy in British Columbia. Thank you for the opportunity to punt some Christmas reading for everybody. You want to know about my book called A Year in the Wild? Yes, everybody, available on Amazon on Kindle. Write me a message if you want a hard copy. I'll charge you probably $1,000 or so, and we'll send you a hard copy. Sandy, you want to know, is it about me and my brother? No, it's not actually. It's about me. Certainly one of the characters is quite similar to me. But the other chap is a friend of mine who works at a lodge down here. My brother is a banker, so very unlike the other fellow in the book. But thank you very much for your kind compliments and taking the time to read it. I really do appreciate that. And all around us, everybody, now the lightning is starting to go wild. And I think Andrew, if you swing to the... you might be able to get a view of it over that side. Woo! And the wind is coming now. And of course it's stopped as Andrew's gone in near it. There we go. Ba-bum, ba-bum. Right, on that note, we're going to leave these hyenas. The little one hasn't come back out again, or probably suckling the other side. We're going to leave them, rush for home. Scott's on quarantine. He's going to show you a bit more of the lightning. I'll see you shortly. Yeah.
Well, it's a moody evening here, and I just said moody like that because I saw a massive bolt of lightning. I'm not sure if it was in the shot or not. I was gazing out off into the distance, but this is incredible. And now the wind's coming. Look at how this marula tree starts to shake and dance in the wind. Incredible. I could hear it coming. And now look at that. Fascinating. And there's all kinds of action. There's lightning to the right, there's lightning to the left. I'm not sure which way Tibbs wants to go and have a look, but either way, there's a lot of stuff going on out here. And let's hope all of this wind and lightning brings some rain. I think it's coming now. I can actually smell it. I'm going to actually rush for cover. I feel we might get caught out here, and I think we need to say goodbye because I can literally smell the rain and the dust. I'm getting out of here. I'm not taking any chances. Woo! Good luck, Impala. And I think we're going to need to send you back to James, who still has a chance of getting caught in the storm, but I'm going to make sure I am not. So goodbye. Thank you for joining in. And it'll be Brent and James out in the morning. See you next time.
Well, I don't know where Scott's running if he thinks I'm not going exactly the same place. The wind howl. Violent lightning coming out of the sky. The momentous clouds are suddenly not looking quite so pretty, but rather more terrifying. It's very noble of Scott to hand over to me to sit here in the tempest as it goes down, and there aren't any questions coming through, I'm afraid, because the internet is down in the final control. Nicola has no power. Right, we're going to get close to home. And apparently the Djuma Dam cam is picking up all the lighting as well, which is very exciting. We're going to go and sit very close to home, and we'll just watch the lighting for the last little while of the show, because I don't want to be out here. Yeah. Jeepers, this is quite something. I actually do just want to have one last look. Andrew, do you think the rubber tyres will protect us?
Negative, Ghost Rider.
The Djuma cam is no longer functioning. Hit in the eye by a piece of dust. So with any luck, everyone, by tomorrow it'll be fine. What happens is the power does go. We're out in the wilds, of course, And when big storms like this come through, it's very difficult to keep going. Now, I'm going to stop here and we're just going to have a look around at the incredible lightning going on. Goodness gracious, I don't even know where to look. I might even take my camera out and take a picture. Of course, by the time I've set it up, the deluge will have begun. Ignoble of Scott to have just run away like that and left me to deal with this vast tempest going on here. Right, let's try and take some kind of an interesting shot. Oh, come on, camera. Right, my aperture, my shutter is open for 30 seconds, so we get some decent stuff there. It should be a good photograph. Which we'll try and show you, but I am moving my hands around. Woo! That was a good one. Can't actually hear the idle control anymore. So we spoke a little bit about a storm earlier, possibly coming from Johannesburg, and would this be the same one? No, it is coming from that direction, but I think this has been building over the mountains for some time. Quite astonishing. I tell you, the power, but so often it does this kind of thing, and it doesn't actually storm. Right, one more photograph and then we're going to pack it in. So it's quite warm, it's still warm out here. There's very little coof on the breeze. And so while we are hoping for some coof, there's very little. Right, the camera is taking its last 30-second exposure. The whole car is shaking in this tempestuous wind. Amazing lightning bolts, and with any luck my camera would have picked some of them up. I can see the lightning also is lighting some of the rain coming out of the sky. "30 seconds feels a very long time when you're holding a camera. I missed that one, of course. Right, I'll show you this picture, and then I think we're going to shut down, everybody, and go home. It just takes a while, me little camera, for it to figure out a 30-second exposure. This is magnificent. It's so special being out here, I'll tell you what. Wow. Come on. Here we go. I'm not even going to show you that, it's too ridiculous. Absolutely pathetic. Alright, Andrew, I think we should head for home.
Yes.
Should we sit here for another 3 minutes?
It may be dangerous.
I think it's going to be a bit dangerous, everybody. We're going to pack it in. I've now lost my lens cap, not that it makes any difference at all. Okay, so I'm afraid, everyone, we don't have anything to cut to on the Djuma Dam camp because obviously it's gone down. And so I'm just going to silhouette myself against the lightning. How's that look, Andrew? Amazing, does it? Yeah, I do my best. Thank you all for your questions and comments today. We've had a wonderful day, and I'm sure you had an incredible time with Scott and those dogs. incredible, really, to see them again, and I hope they're here tomorrow. I also hope we have some power. Thank you, Andrew, for your efforts. Big thank you to Scott and Tibbs, Nikki and Louise in the final control, and Alex the Russian knocking about fixing the virtual reality rig. We are going to leave you now. I can't even hear what they're talking to me anymore. The wind is too powerful. So we will see you in the morning, hopefully bright and early, 0500. Thank you again. Stay safe and happy. And if there's a storm like this brewing wherever you are, get inside now. Bye-bye.